Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the MagicJank podcast, the show where members of Team MagicJank get together each week and talk about the latest happenings in Magic the Gathering. And today we've got a very busy one, which I'm very much looking forward to. We had some bannings this week, and we also have some previews that literally just came out. So Duskmourn previews have been kicked off today as of this recording, and by as of this recording, I mean like an hour ago. So we're going to be diving into those, and this may very well be the first place that you're hearing about some of those, which is exciting.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get into it. So my name's Graham. I go by Hamhawks42 on the internet, and I'm joined by two lovely gentlemen. We've got Damien F16. Damien, how's it going, man?
I'm good. Thanks. A little tired. Had a long night last night, going away party, so I'm maybe not the highest energy here, but that's okay. I can get excited for spoilers. But other than that, I'm doing well. But thanks.
Rock on, man. Rock on. Yeah, so we'll all be able to keep up with you now, maybe. We'll see. But all right, yeah. Good stuff. And then we also have Carlos C. Favreto Jr. in the house. How we doing, man?
Doing good. Getting ready for some store championship standard tomorrow and a modern RCQ on Monday.
Heck yeah, you love to see it.
Exciting.
What decks are you on? What you told us before recording as far as the modern goes. What standard? What are you playing?
In standard, I am playing Jeskai Control.
Excellent.
Damien's been playing it a lot on their stream, and I've been able to play it in paper a couple times now, and it is fantastic. In modern, I will be playing Domain Aggro with some Scion of Draco, Leyline of the Guild Pack shenanigans.
Let's go.
Yeah.
That deck that everybody was screaming was a problem prior to Nadu showing up, and then everyone forgot about it. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's go.
H3.
I love it. Perfect. So speaking of Nadu showing up, first things first, we have bans to talk about. So earlier this week, we got hit by a ban announcement that we all knew was coming, and it was much awaited. And we were debating on, or there's been a lot of discussion about what was going on. Well, so let's start with Modern, right? Nadu got banned. No surprises there. Everybody saw it. Even the marketing, or even the market price of the card being so low, made it very clear everyone knew that card was going, and it did.
Right.
So great. Huzzah. I don't know if we have anything to add, on that discussion. It was clearly a design mistake. I got to say, though, they did release an article. I believe it was Michael Majors, the lead designer for, or who was kind of overseeing Modern Horizons 3, wrote a statement about Nadu specifically and about how there was an error in kind of their testing procedure, and he actually took complete, accountability for it. I thought that was a really classy move. So if you haven't read those articles, I would definitely recommend checking it out because it was an interesting read.
It's good.
Yeah. It shows a lot of flaws in their process, and I hope that by willing to admit that, it means that they're going to fix some of those flaws so that we don't see this kind of thing happen again. But I thought it was really well done how they just called it what it was, acknowledged it was a mistake. They made an error at the last minute. And took responsibility. So, yeah.
I mean, it's good that this guy fell on the sword. He doesn't have to do that. It's not his responsibility. It's obviously a team of people that who made mistakes here, not just him. But hey, kudos for him for taking responsibility. But with these announcements, you always have to read between the lines, right? And when I read between the lines on all the things that were said about why Nadu got printed the way it was, it's concerning. It's gravely concerning. And it's something I've said for a long time now, and it's a very unpopular statement that triggers a lot of players. They get very defensive, which is, Commander and casual Magic are destroying the game in a big way. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, printing Commander cards into normal sets has ruined Legacy multiple times, Pauper, Modern, you name it. I mean, they literally said this card was changed at the last minute because of Commander. And it was perfectly fine for Modern until they wanted to make it better for Commander. Is that what they said? It wasn't powerful enough for Commander, so they wanted people to use it?
They said that the original version of Nadu, as printed, it was supposed to have Flash. And some other things on its ability.
And it gave other spells Flash. It was like kind of a
your other permanent Flash.
Kind of thing.
And they said this is too strong for Commander. So they decided to change it into what its final version was. Right. And then they didn't test the final version at all.
Right.
They just shipped it and said, this is going to be fine.
So, I mean, and that's obviously the problem that's most obvious here as to why Nadu slipped through the cracks. But, I mean, again, like, reading between, like, what they're saying here is they're designing a lot of these cards for Commander. They're even willing to, like, change up cards that were previously tested and okayed for Modern and change them at the last minute, including rewriting their text, which is wild. Not just like changing their toughness or giving them a totally new set of abilities. And that's what broke Modern and was, it ruined Modern. Like Nadu was not supposed to be that kind of a powerful card. So anyway, it just highlights to me like they eventually, I think they need to start printing direct to commander sets and keep cards, casual cards, out of real sets. Like this is a lot of people push back on this and they say, well, this is Modern Horizons. It's a big, powerful set. It's supposed to have stuff for everybody. Like they know they have to cater to the base that, I don't know, there's estimates of it being like 40% of their revenues from, casual products, casual players.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody really knows for sure. But anyway, they have to cater to that. But again, like having these cards mixed, it's called Modern Horizons. This isn't Commander Horizons. It's not Commander Masters. It's like all these UB sets, Universes Beyond, they're all for mostly casual. Just make them illegal. Make them illegal in Modern and Legacy. I don't know why it's so hard. They keep making problems over and over and over. That was very frustrating to read. I hope they learn their lesson, but it appears obviously they have not. I wonder if that's going to change at some point. But yeah, it was very interesting to read. I'm glad that Wizards does release these kind of letters and go into this kind of depth. A lot of times they don't, and people are like, why didn't they talk about this format, or why didn't they talk more about why this is But this was pretty good. They wrote a lot, and that Majors article, Michael Majors, big essay that he wrote there was very informative. And yeah, it gives you this glimpse into, man, it's got to be like, again, trying to squeeze all these commander cards. We see it every single set. I mean, look at OTJ, but even into a Modern Horizon set, and then one of them gets or changed at the last minute because of casual, and it ruins the competitive format. Like that's, they have to stop doing that. I really think they need to print directly to Commander and not have any of that stuff be legal in constructed competitive formats. But what do you guys feel about this? That was my takeaway, but
yeah, I mean, so I guess my comment is not necessarily biased, but based on what I've seen in terms of standard growth. And that is the first time in a long time, I mean, maybe starting like 2 sets ago, I've started to see Commander players play standard. And I mean like at the LGS, like getting hyped for whatever set that was coming out. So, you're talking like Outlaws of Thunder Junction, is really when I first started to see it. People were just so hyped for the set. The Commander decks were greatly desired by the Commander players. One of them you couldn't even find for the first couple weeks because it was very powerful and folks wanted the cards. And we started to see like the little inklings of the revitalization of Standard in the LGSs. And what was interesting is a lot of the folks wanted to buy Outlaws of Thunder Junction because, and this was a criticism that we had of how many bonus sheets in the set, but they were buying the standard products because of the bonus sheets to get cards for Commander, and then realized they have all of these really powerful cards for a standard set. And so Bloomborough came out, and same thing. People wanted to go for the different kindred types, and Bloomborough is all that. So whether or not you bought the Commander deck or you bought actual product that very clearly had strong legendary creatures for Commander, now you realize in New Standard, the way it is, you see it on Arena, lizards, rabbits, right? You can almost take a completely all, outside the mana base, of course, all Bloomborough set and play Standard if you wanted. Lizards is certainly true of that, and so is the Rabbits deck. So I showed up at a store championships yesterday to go play. This is a brand new LGS. It didn't really have like a big Standard following. But since those 2 sets have come out, they get like 15, 16 people during the week for Standard. And the store championship had like 26 players at it. Brand new store. I've never seen them at other LGSs, let's put it that way. Just brand new players to Standard. And they all started showing up to this LGS to play Commander together. So like, I think that part of what they are targeting, I tell you that story because I think partly they're targeting to put Commander cards in these sets to get the Commander players to play that constructed format. Now, it's a lot harder to do that for the older formats, like Modern and Legacy. Like, obviously, somebody who plays Commander isn't just going to pick up Legacy. It's going to be hard for them to pick up Modern, though they probably could sell one of their Commander decks for a legit Modern deck to play in the format, considering like the value of those cards, right? But Standard is certainly attainable, more than attainable for that. And I've just been seeing that recently around my area. I don't know if the same for those of you who are listening, if that's the same around your area or not. But I think it's doing its job in bringing what is their number 1 played format, which is Commander, capturing that subset of the market and saying, come over to the competitive side and play the 60 card formats. It's not everybody, but I think it's a good portion of it to where we can start to see those formats revitalized in paper. Now, whether or not that's good for competitive Magic, I think is maybe a different story in terms of like, is it good in terms of card design, and then those cards that are overtly powerful being put into our competitive spheres. Nadu, I think, obviously that was a clear miss, and we know by their rationale that they were taking Commander into consideration first for that card, according to Michael Major's article. And it is a legitimate argument. They can, considering how many types of sets that they put out during the course of the year, announced or unannounced, the Commander cards can just stick to those releases. And you could just put more new Commander cards in Commander decks for those sets. Because they do that anyway with the standard set releases, right? With Duskmourn, there's 4 of them, and we'll talk about that eventually at a later podcast. But there's 4 brand new decks coming out with this next set. That deck should just be like Commander specific cards plus some standard cards mixed into it, or reprints, or whatever you got to do. Maybe more new cards is what you need. But
I like that. I mean, they should still print Commander stuff. Like, they should print Commander decks and Commander sets, Commander Masters. Just keep them out of Modern Horizons. It's not Commander Horizons. I don't know. I think there's some truth to Standard being revitalized, but I think you're attributing it to something that maybe is not exactly the reason for... I mean, rotation just happened. That's the main impetus here, the main catalyst that's making Standard grow. Standard is finally back on the rails. It hasn't been for a long time, since COVID knocked it out, literally out cold, right?
Sure.
So I think that's a big part of it, but there's some truth to it. But I've known thousands of Magic players over the years. I can probably count on one hand the number that have gone from casual to competitive. I can count on a massive spreadsheet how many of them have gone from competitive to casual. A lot of them stopped playing competitive and only play casual now. But man, it's not often that I come across players who are playing standard because they got into Commander. But you're right, there's probably some. I think it's probably more to do with just now rotation. We don't have to, spend all this money on these other cards. But OTJ was a weird set, an outlier where, a lot of people did buy that because of that ridiculous bonus sheet being jammed in there. But maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I don't think that payoff is worth it, but I don't know. It's hard to say. We don't know how many new players are coming in from Commander. I would be shocked if it's a huge number, but but for the older formats,
I find this conversation really interesting because when Carlo, when you first said that, the idea that people were buying into OTJ because of the bonus sheet having all this powerful stuff in it, my immediate reaction was kind of I don't know, I was skeptical. And then I thought back to when Strixhaven first dropped. And I got to be honest, the Mystical Archives in Strixhaven, I bought way more of that set than I did for any other set around it because of absolute staples that were in that bonus sheet. And I wasn't necessarily doing it for channel and whatnot, but can I stock up on counter spells, lightning bolts with cool treatments, that's good stuff. I'll take that, and I was at a time when I was coming back into the game after a long period off, and so my collection hadn't really been up to date, and so that was an opportunity to get my hands on some older staples. Maybe I get lucky, crack a grape shot or two that maybe I can build a storm deck out of at some point. That idea was very intriguing, and it was exciting every time I cracked one. Right now, I've got a couple of duresses from that. Is that a money card? Absolutely not, but they're neat, and I'm glad I own them, in the special treatment. It's one of those little things. But and I can see the appeal there. The idea that, you could open a Mindbreak Trap or a Mana Drain out of OTJ. Well, wow, that's, I can see the appeal there, for sure. Yeah. And cards like Surgical Extraction or Reanimate, all of a sudden,
high value,
those are playable cards in some of those older formats.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Okay. Being able to get your hands on that, maybe Modern or Legacy even isn't as out of reach as it used to be because we're seeing those reprints in those standard sets and people have their hands on them, and maybe think about it in a way that they didn't before.
Yeah,
you
that's
know, and
great.
that's exciting.
I mean,
yeah, that's a cool idea.
Print those cards. Like, I have no problem. Put Force of Will. I don't give a crap. Put all the staples from Legacy. Put Wastelands in there. I don't give a, you know. Just don't put casual multiplayer cards. Draw the line at casual You cannot put a multiplayer card into a constructed set for one-on-one Magic. You can't. Well, stop designing cards and putting them in those sets. Reprints I'm all for, you know, and Strixhaven's great because that was the first set that did that.
Yeah.
You go back to Kaladesh, very, you know, popular set for the masterpieces. Battle for Zendikar, same thing. First time they introduced the masterpieces. So anytime they do that, you see that, but the kind of spike in sales. But I think it's getting old now. Now all the sets have that kind of stuff. So it's like people aren't just doing it for that anymore, you know? It's like,
right.
I don't know.
Well, and Modern Horizons 3 is a really interesting case because it had a supplemental commander product that came with it. And that was in some of those cards found their way into the play boosters. Like you could draft a card that referenced having a commander at a Modern Horizons 3 draft. What the heck is that? Meanwhile, that card that references having a commander, because it was in the commander product, if I'm not mistaken, check me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't believe that became Modern legal. So if Nadu had been in the commander product and it been in one of the precons, then maybe commander players would be like, guys, this is busted, right? But it wouldn't, you know, Pro Tour Nadu wouldn't have happened. You know,
but wait, are commander cards legal? Commander cards aren't legal in Modern, though.
Commander cards are not legal in Modern. Legacy. They are legal in Legacy and Vintage, yes. And maybe Legacy players would do the Shuko thing and people would go like, what? That's a thing now? But it wouldn't, like, Pro Tour Nadu, that happened, wouldn't have happened if Nadu hadn't been in the main set. So it's interesting because the tools were there to stop this, and and it didn't happen.
Well, and again, I feel like again their whole design philosophy has to change for this kind of thing to stop happening. This will happen again. Mark my words. It may not be next set. It may not be till the next Modern Horizons. Who knows? But it's going to keep happening if they keep doing this. It's going to happen to Legacy more and more often. It already has happened, like I said, a few times. When they have to ban commons because they have, you know, initiative on them or whatever. But it's like, I just think that was this moving on. There's so many bans we have a lot to talk about. But Nadu, you know, it was just interesting to read that, and I was like, you know, it makes me hope that they learn their lesson and maybe back off from pushing that kind of stuff, or I don't know, rethinking their strategy with casual cards in the packs. Like you can put them in there as promo cards as special guests, but anyway, we'll see. But they also banned Grief, which was everybody hated, which was like, you know, I don't know, a lot of people could not stand that card in Modern, and it was destroying Legacy like that, and the and Reanimate with the frog and everything. So I think a lot of people are happy to see it go, but a lot of people are like, why did we wait this long? When you banned Fury, people were calling for Grief ban. Why didn't you ban it then, you know? And then they didn't, and now it's ironic because the One Ring came out, and then Nadu came out, and now people are like, Grief wasn't so bad. It's like this Stockholm syndrome like going on where people are just like, the thing they hated like last year, they're suddenly like not a problem with because Nadu. Yeah, sorry for Reddit.
Grief was the reason I stopped going to my local Modern tournament every Monday.
Yeah.
And why I wasn't going this before Nadu, because it was just not an enjoyable play experience. If you mulliganed to 6 to 5 and your opponent grief scammed you, the game's over. It's worth my time. I should have just not worth my time. I should have just stayed home. You know what I mean? And the amount of tournaments I would go to that somebody would just grief scam you because that was the thing to do at the time. Just it either you're scamming somebody or they're scamming you. And if they're not, somebody's doing it wrong. And it just made it not enjoyable. In the same way that Nadu just made it unenjoyable to want to show up to a tournament to play against that stuff. Like, you had to be playing that deck, or you're probably playing the wrong deck. Now, you know, Grease should have been banned many, many months ago. And it should have been banned in Legacy when their advisors told them to ban the card in Legacy instead of just not taking action against it and canceling like whole tournament series because people don't want to show up to play. You know, it's such a strong card, but I think that speaks more to the facts of, in my opinion, you don't have to agree with me, they should stop printing free spells into Modern. Like, I know they printed fixed versions into Modern Horizons 3, but like,
well, look, half of them are banned. 2 out of 5 are banned. I mean,
we've gotten to the point. We've gotten to the point in Modern, and what used to be nice is people used to be able to show up to tournaments with decks that they had from years ago, and they would still be able to play the cards that they had. And because Modern is an eternal format, nothing rotates out of it. The Modern Horizon sets are their way of trying to rotate the format. People can't do that anymore. you can't show up, with your old Eldrazi Tron deck. You can't show up from back in the day with your Naya Zoo deck. It's just not playable.
You can, but you'll get your ass handed to you.
Right,
yeah.
right.
right.
So it's become much more than that, and it's become a format that you must keep up with. And it's either play the most powerful cards that they print into the format or have not a great time. And, I find it very interesting, and I'm not saying that the energy deck is overpowered at all, but I find it very interesting that deck, which was able to keep up with Nadu, nothing was like preemptively banned from it, just to make sure that the format was leveled out. Maybe they don't think anything from the Boros energy deck or Mardu energy deck, whatever iteration, is too powerful yet, but they might see that down the line because that deck had been putting up results. And I find it interesting that there was no action taken against the One Ring in one form or another, whether ban or decide to start restricting the cards. Because if you take a look at past ban announcements of cards that were playable in every deck, such as Smuggler's Copter and Reckoner Bankbuster, cards that any deck would play, decks would have whatever amount of copies in it, because if you weren't playing that card, you were wrong. And that was the reason they banned those cards in those respective formats, because they were too strong for that reason. The One Ring can be played in any deck.
Yeah, the One Ring's
any deck
problem.
at all.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I'm very curious to see why they didn't take action against that, because they didn't really speak about it. And we still got half, or I don't know, a month left of like modern RCQ seasons left to go, because that's how it is. So
now, is it tinfoil hat to wonder if the One Ring not being banned is partially just because of optics, because they made such a big deal about the $2 million Post Malone acquisition?
Could be.
I don't know. I feel
knows?
like I don't. I want to believe that that's not actually a factor, because if Forbes runs an article saying $2 billion card banned or $2 million card banned, whatever, it would just get some clicks and people wouldn't really know what they're reading, so it wouldn't actually affect anything. At the end of the day, if people aren't enjoying the format,
the One Ring,
but
like it's interesting. It's the most iconic card from the most iconic IP they've ever made a set on, and it did what they wanted it to. They pushed it. They wanted it to see a lot of play, and it is. It's the most played card in Modern, not close. Look at the last Pro Tour or any big tournament you want to look at. There's more copies of One Ring than anything else. I think it needs to go. I think we've said this before on the podcast several times. When Modern comes up, it's like these. Again, again, it's the same kind of thing where I think they wanted it to be good even in Commander. They know how many. It's a color. It's a format where everybody plays Soul Ring. Like, here's an artifact that every Commander deck's gonna want to play, every single one.
Yeah.
So
100%.
let's push it. And I mean, if it breaks Modern, fine. So now it's like, what is it, $100 and something now? Like, the problem for me also is the price. It keeps going up, and all the versions keep going up. There's a million of them. And it's like, when do you ban it? Do you ban it when it's $200? Do you ban it when it's more? Like, I've played in formats of $150 Tarmogoyfs and other cards, and it was like, they didn't ban those things, but can you imagine if they had, like, when these cards were seeing play all over the place and they were very expensive? It's problematic. Jace banned out of Standard. It was $100 at the time, and people went nuts. People got very upset. So why not nip it in the bud? Yeah, I don't know why they're not banning One Ring, but it's interesting talking about eternal formats. Modern is no longer an eternal format. You said so yourself. Like, it does rotate. It rotates every few years with the printing of Modern Horizons. And I don't like that, because initially that format was conceived as what, like you said, an eternal format. It was supposed to be for the standard decks to go and retire and go off to the pasture and enjoy my time. And you can still play your old standard decks in Modern. That's clearly not the case anymore. And it's just like Alchemy, right? Alchemy, the purpose for which it was conceived is no longer being served at all by that format. It doesn't have a purpose really to exist anymore. Modern is in this weird space where it's so close to Legacy. Like, they just banned Grief in Legacy as well. We can loop that in with the Modern bans. Like, look how many Modern cards, or how many cards that were printed in the last 5 years or in the last couple Modern Horizon sets are in the best decks in Legacy. Legacy feels like Modern, but it's got a different ban list. That's basically the only difference. And at this point, Modern is so big, they should abolish it. I bet you Modern, if they're smart, dies in the next 5 years, because now Pioneer is the eternal format. Pioneer is where the standard decks go to die. We have this, once the format gets so big that it's closer to Legacy than Standard, it isn't viable anymore as an eternal format. You just merge it with Legacy. Now we have, that's why Pioneer came out, because now we needed this new kind of format, because Modern was getting too bloated and massive and whatever. Pioneer is the new Eternal format. Pioneer doesn't have a rotating master set. Pioneer doesn't rotate. It's the one format that doesn't rotate. Legacy rotates every time they print a Commander product. So Legacy's all over the place. Modern every couple of years. Standard every 3 years. Pioneer's the only format that doesn't rotate. And we'll get to the Pioneer bannings, which are really interesting.
Yep.
But that's the way they rotate Pioneer, is with bannings. And anyway, talking about Modern Legacy, I wouldn't be surprised to see Modern totally abolished in like 5 to 7 years, and it just combined with Legacy, and then they make Pioneer the new Modern, basically. We'll see. Otherwise, I don't know how you fix this, because, yeah, you ban one thing, you're going to ban the next thing. There's so many powerful things. Like, yeah, so jumping to Pioneer, they banned, well, Ham, do you want to go over the announcement?
I'd be happy to. One final note, just to try to put a button on kind of those thoughts. I always find it funny, the name Modern, I don't think has aged very well, because it's a format where you can play 20-year-old cards. That doesn't seem very modern.
At some point,
to me,
we need to, like,
I think
updating
updating
the format
that
or
would
something.
be kind of nice. But yeah, so Pioneer is trying to capture kind of that same idea of, like, you know, you where if you had a standard deck that was good, but a large portion of it rotated, you could continue playing some variant of it, maybe update a couple pieces and keep it going. Pioneer is absolutely that now, and we saw 2 bannings for it. Both of which, I mean, were very, very strong. We have Amalia Benavides Aguirre. I hope I pronounced that even close to correct. So that is the vampire that when you gain life, you explore, and when you hit 20, when she hits 20 power, everything dies. Wildgrowth Walker created an infinite loop. It was a whole thing. And then Sorin Imperious Bloodlord also got banned, which is one of those cards that... It was funny because it came out in, I think, M19 or M20, one of those, and it wasn't a big deal for years. Yeah. And then they printed Vein Ripper, and holy cow, everything changed. So yeah.
True. It was very good at the beginning. I don't know if you remember, I was playing Pioneer when they first invented the format, and Mono Black was the best deck, and it wasn't even close. And one of the big reasons was Sorin. And back then, he was flashing in like Legion something Knight guy that draws cards when he ETBs, you lose life.
Right. It was still very good. Where you drop cards.
But it was the one that dominated. This one that would tap to crew and they would like lose life. They had to ban all that stuff, right? But once they banned all that, then Sorin cooled right down, right? But that kind of card is just sitting there waiting for another vampire to be printed. That's really good, and he cheats it in. So yes, Sorin deserved to be banned. He's like Karn in that way. Every time you print a new artifact, Karn gets better, and at some point, Karn's too good, and you got to ban it. And it's been banned now from Pioneer, and it's got to be banned from Modern at some point, probably. But Sorin was a problem that just waiting for the right card to break it, and then it happened. 30% of the metagame vampires at that point. It was crazy. It was like everywhere, and it's kind of insane that it got that good. Just this, this one vampire ended up making all these black-red, like Fable. Fable's another card that they mentioned, and Treasure Cruise talked about banning these cards, right?
Yes.
And again, this is where you read between the lines, and there's this disconnect. The reasoning they mentioned for stopping Sorin and banning Sorin was that, like I'm paraphrasing here, but they said something along the lines of, when you the card's cost that's listed in the corner, it should be the cost you pay, and if you pay way under that cost, that's bad. And Sorin allowed you to play cards that cost 6 for 3 mana on turn 3, right? So we decided to ban Sorin. And then the next paragraph, or a few paragraphs down, they say, but Treasure Cruise is fine. It's like, wait, what? Do you know how much we pay for Treasure Cruise? Wait, by that logic, why is Treasure Cruise still a viable card in this format? It's crazy. The fact that they mentioned it is great, because the last time they mentioned it, they specifically said they're never going to take Delve cards out of the format. We feel there should be a format where Delve cards should be played. That was a long time ago. Now they're saying, we're talking about Treasure Cruise. We know it might be a problem. We've got to do something. It's like, well, why didn't you just... I think they should have had a swath of bannings, just like they did in 2020. Ban Inverter, ban Walking Ballista, ban Kethis, ban... They banned all the combo cards. And great. That's how you rotate Pioneer. It doesn't rotate otherwise. So you need a swath. I would have banned Treasure Cruise. I would have banned Nykthos. I would have started shooting, banning everything, but...
How Nykthos avoided this one don't make any sense to me.
It didn't even get called out in the ban. They're not even looking at it.
Right. And it's like, hello, have you, like, if you could turn on anybody's stream who's playing like Explorer or Pioneer on Magic Online, you see folks playing mono green. Now, it might take a lot of clicks on Magic Online, which is why you might not see like the most... Same thing with Nadu, right? A lot of people just stopped voluntarily playing Nadu on Magic Online because of the timer and too many clicks to go through things. And hey, completely valid, right?
Oh, yeah.
The same thing is for Nykthos. even though it's less prevalent, but still very much an issue there. And it had been doing well. There was like a mono green splashing white for Elish Norn variant that was going around recently. And during the first Pioneer RCQ season, they had given out, or I don't know if it was a Pioneer season or not, but they were giving away Nykthos as the promo card. So when you top 8'd, you got a promo Nykthos. If you came in first place, you got like a foil promo Nykthos. That was like a draw to get people to come to the tournament. And so you couldn't ban Nykthos then because you were giving everybody away the prize cards. What are you going to do? Ban all the prize cards you gave them? Which is just like super funny in my opinion. But they didn't do anything then. And you thought, oh, well, maybe they'll wait a little bit and do it soon. They still haven't. I mean, I rather enjoy playing Pioneer. I look forward to going. I'm going to go to the SCG Con that's in Chantilly, Virginia, not Washington, D.C. And it is a regional championship, right? I'm not good for regionals. I'm going to try to play on the Friday for the LCQs to try to get in. And that is Pioneer. And that'll be the first test, really, of the new format because your current RCQ season is Modern. And, Treasure Cruise, the other point to make on your point on Treasure Cruise, Damien, they just put that on Arena after so long. You couldn't even play the Phoenix deck. That's the really biggest beef I have with Explorer on Arena, period. I can't play any deck that I want to play in Paper Magic in that format because it doesn't have all the cards. And they need to do that sooner than later. And so they had announced that they would do Pioneer Masters or whatever to get more cards on Arena, but that's still not coming for a while. And you can play test on Magic Online. The whole format is there, and totally worth it to do because that's more realistic than anything else. And that's where the majority of the testing is happening right now for the regional championship. But Treasure Cruise is just too strong in general. I thought they were going to ban the card and say this is why it's not going to Arena because it's too strong for Pioneer. Maybe that's why they waited too long.
That would have made sense. Yeah.
And so I think they're holding off now because they don't see a need to ban it. Phoenix has got to be one of the top decks in Pioneer, right? It's very strong.
It's the best blue deck in Pioneer.
I'm still sad that I can't play my damn Niv Mizzet Bring the Light deck because we ain't got Bring the Light on Arena.
It's weird. Even decks like Phoenix had the highest win rate of the last Pro Tour, Pioneer Pro Tour, the last high level tournament where we had Pioneer high level competitive play. It was the most played deck and it was the most winning deck. That is crazy. That happens only when a deck is like Nadu, Hogak, like these kind of levels of ridiculous domination. So and I don't know what the metagame is going to turn into. I know with Amalia gone, Phoenix probably gets better. I know Blue-White Control gets worse. That was their best matchup, but Blue-White, the other blue decks you just can't play in Pioneer. Like the Phoenix deck is the best blue deck in the format, and it keeps all the other ones kind of suppressed, I think. Rakdos, I guess, is going to go back to Rakdos mid-range or maybe like the Cat Oven version. Like they're fine, but because they have Fable still. Fable's another card. Like at some point, I don't know, something might happen to that, but. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I would like to see definitely more bannings, but and then people point. But look, there's Krenko's Buzz Crusher, Lotus Field, Nykthos. We've got answers to that. It's like, wait, you really though? Do you think that's balancing anything? It's not, right? Like we can't. You need to ban stuff in Pioneer, otherwise it doesn't quote unquote rotate. The last thing I want to talk about with these bannings, or I don't know if you guys want to add anything else here, but the last thing I wanted to mention, it's funny. When I talk to players, a lot of them complain about these very powerful cards and they want to see them banned. But then they also say they don't like Modern Horizons. They don't like the artificial rotation that defeats the purpose of this eternal format, quote unquote, that, clearly not eternal. So the weird, like, two sides to this coin is you don't want the format to rotate, but when the format doesn't rotate, like Pioneer, the biggest complaint people have is that it's stale. The biggest reason people don't like playing Pioneer, a lot of people complain about Pioneer, is the same decks are still good that were good 2 years ago. The same, the format doesn't change. They don't have a Horizon set. They don't rotate. So unless there's a banning, it's the same stuff over and over. Like new standard sets come out, and once in a while they'll something will pop in that creates a new deck, like Amalia, right? Usually something too good. Now Amalia's banned, but But the other side of that coin is, the format's stale. So people want their formats to not change and want their decks to always be good, but then they also want things to change all the time. And it's like, you can't have both. So what do you do? Like, Wizards is in between a rock and a hard place. Like, how are they supposed to make all the players happy when half of them hate this new set that makes all their decks invalidated, every time it happens? Versus the other bunch of people who are saying Modern sucks, Pioneer sucks, it's always the same stuff, we need to change it. It's all the Ragavan, all the other powerful stuff was good right up until Modern Horizons 3. Now it's a fresh format. Everybody was happy. Everybody loved playing with, like, as much as they complain about Nadu, it was a totally fresh format. There's fun to be had there. I think if it wasn't for Nadu being so broken, people would be pretty happy with that rotation. So it's this weird thing where, I don't know. Is there a right answer here? You can't make everybody happy. So where do you land? Like, which side? It's
well,
tough.
you can't please everybody, and exactly trying to figure out which audience is more important. And I think, honestly, if I may sound a little cynical for a second, which I don't know, that's not a comfortable fit for me, but I'll take it. If I can be cynical for this one, I think at the end of the day, they're gonna prioritize whatever plan makes them the most money, and that's not even a cynical take. That's just facts.
Yeah.
And so, making sure that somebody who has a Jund Modern deck that they spent $1,500 on over the course of 5 years, worrying about that person having a place that they can continue to play and having them be incentivized to keep showing up. Well, that person, if their dream is realized, they don't need to buy any new cards, like, at all, or like the one every now and then, like maybe get a Shield Red or two when that first dropped. But other than that, like, the occasional single here and there, but they don't have a need to buy new cards. Well, Wizards isn't going to prioritize pleasing those folks, and so that's why we're here, and the rotating formats like Modern that were promised to be like non-rotating formats, effective, formats that could stay stable. I think some formats staying stable for an established player base that will just maintain a status quo is very important, and I think that should be Legacy, that should be Vintage, that should be Modern. But we're not putting that toothpaste back in the tube, so here we are. That is already, they disagree with me on keeping Modern in that same bracket, apparently. It is weird that we're at a point where Pioneer now feels like the stable format compared to everything else. I mean, at this point, I almost feel like Standard feels more stable than Modern, and it's designed to be unstable, which is, anyway.
You mean to tell me that Standard is the best constructed format you could play?
If you want a constantly refreshing format. Great. Like, having a format that is constantly evolving, constantly shifting, and requiring you to stay on your toes is important. And they built Standard to be that. It was designed to be that from day one.
But
and
you've got to pay for it.
But you got to pay for it.
The privilege. Like, that's what it is. I'm sorry. Don't complain about Standard. Yeah, like, Standard decks are expensive and then they rotate. No, they're not worth anything. Boo-hoo. But the constantly rotating nature of Standard is what makes it so fun. So it does suck that your deck rotates, but that's kind of why it's awesome.
Standard now makes your Standard cards more playable for like an additional year. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. 3 years is a big boost to the value for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, so we'll see.
But regardless, the fact that we don't have stability all the way back, I think, is generally a problem. But yeah, Amalia Soren, they were very, very powerful. Yeah. Pioneer's interesting. I've also been playing a little bit of Explorer on Arena, and one thing I've noticed, and I think a big part of it, is that it doesn't match the Pioneer experience. And if you're on Arena, you can't do any of the alchemy nonsense, in that format. I think a lot of I feel like Explorer is in a really rough spot right now. I've noticed queue times in Explorer are more than anything else on that platform by a mile. If you're in I'm in the low mythic ranks right now, and I'm in Explorer. Like, in Explorer, it's like a minute and a half in the queues consistently. I've never seen that anywhere else, and I'm getting paired between upper numbers to like diamond. It's they have to really open the pool up to just get a match, and
I don't know why they don't just
it feels like an unhealthy queue, and it's the only one that feels that way right now, which is a bummer. So
it's not surprising to me. I mean, why would I play the format? What reason do I have to care about Explorer? I'm gonna have to do because it doesn't line up with Pioneer. I have to kind of figure out a different format with no data to go on, and for what? Like, I can't play anywhere else.
Are there any? Yeah, I don't believe there are any official Explorer events coming up anytime soon. So why bother learning it?
Every once in they'll randomly have like a the qualifier play-in will be one of these kind of formats sometimes, Explorer, or they'll make it Alchemy or Historic.
Yeah, those are the
That's
time
the
when
only
Historic
time
gets the
that
most
they're
love is
and yeah, when they cram it down our throats. I don't know.
Right.
Like nobody want like it would be great if it was Pioneer. Like yeah, we need 2 competitive formats on Arena. We only have 1 right now, standard. Like Timeless, Historic, and Alchemy are just, for fun kind of formats. So
Right.
not having Pioneer sucks. Yeah, hopefully they change that.
Yeah, it'd be nice. I hope that gets prioritized. I don't know that they're gonna see a return on it anytime soon. So I don't know how high
I
the
don't
priority
suppose
is.
before we move off the bannings and onto other stuff, you guys don't have any cards that you think they should have unbanned in any formats, do you?
Splinter Twin in Modern.
Splinter Twin, yeah. It would be
There's
fine.
no reason for that
fine.
card to be banned in that format
at this
anymore.
point, yeah.
You're
at
absolutely
this
right.
point, 100%. And I feel like there are a handful of those that I bet if you really looked at the Modern ban list specifically, there are probably a handful of them from the past that could absolutely come out. I'm sure there are quite a few. And Splinter Twin leaps to mind because I understand it was probably
my hot
take,
take,
but yeah.
My hot take for the next ban announcement: Psychic Frog Dunzo in Legacy.
Ooh.
Watch
I don't hate that
Psychic
idea.
Frog get banned.
But, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
yeah, and
so
there are also
we've
some
got
changes in Vintage. I don't know if we have Vexing Bauble and Urza Saga are restricted. I don't know if you guys have anything to add there.
So
but yeah,
I don't know anything about Vintage, but I've been listening to some people talk about it, and apparently Vexing Bauble is so broken. It's like ridiculously broken. Like, and everybody was like, "Are you kidding?" Right away, it immediately saw a ton of play, and yeah, they immediately had to ban it. But I don't know what the decks were doing with it. I haven't looked at anything, so I just heard it was really busted.
If you're not familiar with Vexing Bauble, it's a 1-mana artifact that whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, you just counter it. And apparently, so like cool
nice
force of will. Is the force of will going to hit this Vexing Bauble? Because if not, tough luck. Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
Yeah, crazy.
Nice, like multi-$1,000 Moxen you have.
Exactly.
Here's my
It's like I played
25
Black
cent
Lotus.
common or uncommon.
It's countered. Oh,
yeah. Little too good. But jumping from the oldest format to the latest hotness. Yes, Bloomburrow just came out, but there's another set right hot on its heels. So
yes. So as Bloomburrow rides off into the sunset as it's old news, let's go ahead and move on to Duskmourn coming up. So we have a number of new cards that have just been spoiled. Now we had the first look a couple weeks back on Duskmourn, so we've seen some cards already, but just today, as of this recording, which is Saturday the 31st, they did release a couple of new cards that we have for you that we're going to chat about. We're not going to touch on every single one of them because actually they're probably still in the last half hour that we've been talking. Some have probably come up on social media and whatnot. And by the time you're listening to this, we can guarantee not to get them all. But let's touch on a couple that are pretty big, including, and I'll be honest, actually, I have not carefully read all of these as we go, so we're going to get some raw takes on this.
First look, first reaction.
First reaction, and we're going to start with the big bad of the set, Valgavoth Terror Eater. We've seen some art for this guy. He's the Elder Demon at the heart of Duskmourn, the house that the whole set is built around. He's the big bad. The moth imagery is this guy. All right. So he's a legendary Elder Demon, 9/9 for 9. So it's 6 black. Flying lifelink. Ward, sacrifice 3 non-land permanents. I mean, that's pretty much hexproof.
Ward. Hold on, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that the most brutal ward cost we've ever seen on a card? I think it might be. Sauron is the only other one that comes to mind. Sauron says like sack a legendary creature or something.
Sack a legendary creature. Yeah, that one's pretty bad. But
3 non-land permanents?
3 non-land permanents.
That hurts. That's the most brutal one I've seen. Yeah. Sorry. Carry on.
Well, no, it's okay.
I just want to draw attention to that.
That's pretty nasty. Well, and it's funny though because I think in Commander that might not be a big deal because people have excess tokens and nonsense lying around all over the place. But in a 60 card format, three things is a lot. If a card you didn't control would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. If a card you didn't control, any card. So that includes cards in hand, that includes cards in libraries, all of it.
Discard, stuff dying, and only your opponent, not you.
Yes, So it's a Leyline of the Void style effect, kind of, if I'm not... but it also... amazing. Then during your turn, you may play cards exiled with Valgavoth. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than pay its mana cost.
So Bolas is Citadel.
Yeah, I was just going to say, a Bolas is Citadel stapled to Leyline stable.
If a Leyline of the
demon.
Void, if the well, and it's a flying lifelink demon, so if Gristlebrand was Bolus's Citadel while being Leyline of the Void, you get this thing. What is happening?
Anyway. I mean, I don't think this is it, but like this isn't a reanimation target. I'm playing Sultai Reanimator right now in Standard a lot, and I looked at this and I'm like, ooh, can we jam this? Because it's black. I could, could technically hard cast it, but it's just not worth putting into play. I mean, I don't know unless I think you got to be doing some kind of not only reanimate but decking your opponent, milling your opponent, and then trying to I don't know.
Yeah.
So many cards these days like this, ever since Gonti got printed and people realized, oh man, like Wizards realized people love playing their opponent's cards and killing them with them. So then there's Atali, and then there's Breach the Multiverse, and there's, the Insidious Cruel Claw or whatever he's called. And there's so many cards like this. Yes, here is another one, Outrageous Robbery. You get to beat your opponent up with their own cards. It's a little much. I don't know. I don't think
I'm
it's
down.
play. Are you gonna go for it?
Who wants to play these cards in their deck so I can play them?
I'm into it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I want to play this against the crime deck, reanimate it, and steal their Jasper and use that to keep stealing their cards. That's what I want to do.
Nice.
Let's go all in on stealing your stuff.
So there's nothing that we could do. The only other thing that comes to my mind, like trying to cheat this into play, because I mean, ramp decks can play things for 9 mana now, but you're not trying to ramp to this. You're trying to ramp to like better cards like Itali, right? That let you then cast this for free. But it makes me think of Invasion of Amonkhet from March of the Machine, and discarding this and making your cheap creature become Valgavoth. It's got to be kind of strong.
That's interesting.
You can't just go for the throat this early, so it's kind of going to be on the battlefield unless it gets board wiped. And they did show some more board wipes.
Hooray.
They did?
We'll get to that. Oh yeah.
We don't need any more. We don't. Anyway, but yeah.
They did show a very strong board wipe today. Like very strong board wipe. Yeah.
Great.
Hooray. Love it.
Wait,
Yay.
you mean I know what you're talking about. Okay. Well, Valgaboth, big demon. I don't know. Maybe a niche thing like that could be
Big crazy demon mono black commander players are gonna have a blast with it. I do reanimation shenanigans all the time, so I'll probably be playing with it a little bit. But at the end of the day, hosers like this being on on big threats tends to be pretty lackluster, just because by the time you can get this, you want to close the game quickly. So like getting a lot of mileage out of getting cards exiled from your opponent and then being able to cast them, I don't know how much value. It's slow for what you're doing. If this was on a cheaper creature, like if this was on a 5-drop, like even with significantly lower stats, like shut up and take my money. That's amazing. But on a 9, it's just it's kind of reanimate or ramp like crazy.
Yeah,
and then when you could
doesn't
play
exile the
Italia or
graveyard. It also just
right.
exiles future cards. So if their graveyard's already
stocked,
stocked, you're not really hating their graveyard or anything.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, I think pretty much a casual card, but
I think it's a casual card.
Jump to next?
Yeah, as somebody who likes doing casual reanimator nonsense, I'm going to look forward to picking that up when it's down to like $2. That's going to be great.
Yeah. So many cards here.
We have a lot.
Do you have one you want to choose?
Yeah, I'm thinking next up, let's chat about the Planeswalker of the set, Kaito, Bane of Nightmares. I don't know if he's going to be the only Planeswalker. Did they confirm that or not?
They did. So Kaito will be the only Planeswalker in this set.
Excellent.
So for those of you listening, Kaito, Bane of Nightmares, costs 2, a blue and a black. It has 2 static abilities. Well, 1 activated ability. The activated ability is ninjutsu. So for 1, a blue and a black, you can return an unblocked attacker you control to your hand and put Kaito on the battlefield.
Tapping and attacking, no less. And yes, this is a Planeswalker. You didn't mishear us. It's not a creature.
That's right. Yeah. And so it says, during your turn, as long as Kaito has 1 or more loyalty counters on him, he's a 3/4 ninja creature that has hexproof. So it protects itself on your turn, always, through hexproof. So it comes into play as a tapped attacking 3/4. Now it starts with 4 loyalty, so it already will have loyalty counters on it. You can +1 to give yourself an emblem that says ninjas you control get +1/+1. You could 0 to surveil 2, then draw a card for each opponent who lost life this turn. and you can -2 to tap target creature and put 2 stun counters on it. So another ability that protects itself. So it protects itself, it surveils, and might draw a card, or you could just +1, and Kaito then grows to a 4/5 immediately for that static ability on your turn. So it's kind of like an old Gideon Planeswalker merged here, because no more Gideon, RIP. So no more Gideon forever Creature Walker. Now Kaito is that.
I mean, yeah, the emblem is very Gideon-esque. It smacks of Wandering Emperor to me. I mean, it's a flash planeswalker. It comes in on your opponent's turn. It's all of its abilities are middling ability. Like, they're all good, but there's no ultimate here. Just like the Emperor. It's just a value train that just sits there and just keeps doing the thing. And there's no big payoff. It just, the -2 protects itself. The +1 protects you or protects your other creatures if you have other ninjas. Now, I mean, for standard, I'm not sure how many ninjas are going to be around, but this is very powerful. Hexproof on your turn means no spot removal, and Planeswalker on your opponent's turn means no sweepers can touch this. So it's basically unkillable unless they kill it on your turn with a Planeswalker removal spell like Get Lost or what have you, right? So I like it a lot. It's got flash. It's a weird flash because it's not like Emperor that you can just slam it. You do have to have a creature to bounce. But yeah, the emblems are very powerful because they don't go away. You know, this was the problem with energy when it first came out and other resources that they can't be interacted with. Don't ever underestimate an emblem, even if it's like, okay, ninjas you control, sure. But that still can be really powerful. We have to look, and maybe, I don't know if there's ninjas coming. I don't know what this guy's doing in the house. Personally, I don't know if you guys are following the lore, but what is a ninja doing in the house? I don't know.
I don't know that they said in the lore yet where Kaito's come in. I know there's been a couple stories published on, the Magic the Gathering website. I haven't read or listened to them all. Side note, you can listen to the stories as podcasts now.
They do have audio
site.
versions.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Good.
And the quality on them is very good. I haven't done Duskmourn yet, but I did them for the last couple of sets. They're quite nice. Yeah.
Cool. I like it. I think it's a cool card. I like this design space, this flash planeswalker stuff. It was like Emperor. Everybody was very happy. It was very powerful and saw a lot of play, but I don't think anybody who's seriously knowledgeable about the game is calling for it to be banned. I know a lot of people were like, ban Emperor, I hate playing against it, but kids, quiet down. But it's not, it wasn't too good for standard. It was just very, very good. That they nailed it with that, right? So I like seeing this. I think this card probably will see some play. I don't know how much, but how good are ninjas? I mean, I don't know. We just had Neo rotate.
Right. Yeah, we just had Neo rotate. So the previous Kaito just disappeared, and he was actually a really good, just general value piece at 3. And I feel like this guy could do kind of the same thing, right? Like, where if you have one attacker that you're able to, bounce back. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't the Aftermath had a rat ninja in it? That forces people to discard?
Yeah.
Which is a great ninja enabler. Assuming that the Nezumi cut purse, I think it is, or
Yep.
Okay. I thought it was Satoru. There's like a Satoru guy.
There's Satoru as well from OGJ. Yes. Yeah, Umezawa. It was in there as well. So I guess there are a couple of ninjas, but not a lot. Ninjas were a very supported archetype in Neo, so it is a little awkward that this guy's showing up like right as that set left, because all the good ninjas just disappeared. Now in time now we have a great ninja lord and all the ninjas are gone, which is awkward. But I read this between the that +1 ability and the 0. The way that the 0 is templated, surveil 2, then draw a card for each opponent who lost life this turn. That was clearly templated to be compatible with Commander. So I read this and I'm reminded of the fact that Yuriko, the Tiger Shadow, is like top 3 most popular commanders of all time, and I myself have one of those decks. This is day 1 include in that, no question.
Damn.
And so I have a feeling this card's not going to see much meaningful play in Standard. It'll probably be a decent value piece in some kind of Dimir or maybe Grixis or whatever shakes out, Mardu maybe, I don't know, or not Mardu, Esper maybe, whatever the mid-range shell is that leverages these 2 colors. I could see this being a part of it. But Carlo, to your point, that +1, in many decks, it's really just going to be buffing Kaito stats on future turns. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but that might be all that gets you. And so what it's really going to be is you pop your opponent for 3 with this, surveil 2, draw a card. And then your opponent has this kind of elusive threat, like, that can avoid Sunfall, which... That's good. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a perfectly reasonable threat. And it'll continue to draw you cards at the very least if you can keep getting in for damage. So... Yeah,
I
I don't
think
know.
what's pretty strong about this card is that so you can ninjutsu it on turn 3 or whenever you have 3 available mana. So you've probably played like a turn 1 or turn 2 card that will clearly be your unblockable attacker that's going to be put back to your hand.
Yeah,
There
like
are many like blink sort of effects that exist, or like nurturing pixie and granted that is a white card, but comes to mind when thinking about a card like this. Or like you said, the 1/1 that makes your opponent discards a card. There's actually 2 or 3 of those effects currently in standard. That's 1 in a black to do that. One of them is a card that lets your opponent exile a card for 1 in a black.
The snail, yeah.
And it's just the 1/1, the snail. Yeah. And so at worst, you could take it a 2-drop attack, it goes unblocked, you put this into play for 3, Kaito deals 3 damage, you 0, you surveil 2, and draw a card. That's very strong on a planeswalker by itself that would otherwise not do damage if it wasn't something that came into play tapped and attacking. And at best, well, maybe that is kind of at best, but at worst, then you would be paying 4 mana for this card that taps a creature, 2 stun counters on it on turn 4, which is relevant if you're playing against like a sort of a bigger like mid-range deck, right? Think about how standard is now, Golgari being one of the strongest mid-range decks. If you can tap down Glissa Sunslayer for 2 turns, that's pretty good. Or tap down like Aklasats without having to waste removal or something like that while you're able to build up. Sounds kind of good. I will note that there is another Kaito that currently is in standard. It's the one from Phyrexia All will be one that's 4 mana, but there's no ninja thing on that card. It puts in like a drone or something. But notably, and I just say this because I have the card in front of me, because it says when the creature leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So you could attack with the drone for 2, ninjutsu this Kaito in, your opponent loses 2, you gain 2, then you surveil and you draw a card and deal damage. Yeah. So like
deck by Kaitos. I love this.
They kinda work with each other, and they're both Kaitos, so I mean if you want in on that.
Well,
sounds like some jank up my alley.
Yeah,
it looks. Dimir Tempo was one of the best decks in standard before rotation, and we haven't seen much Dimir Tempo since rotation. But I don't think that's because it's a bad deck. I think it's just because people are enjoying playing new cards and trying new stuff. And again, we don't have any competitive Magic happening in standard really right now, so nobody's really said, okay, we don't care about playing our new pet cards. We're just going to find the best deck. Maybe it's Dimir Tempo still. I don't know, but I see this card and I think, what does Dimir Tempo do? Spyglass Siren on turn 1, Fairy Mastermind on turn 2, bang, Kaito on turn 3 instead of Gix. What's the difference? Well, Gix used to draw you 2 cards, but then Gix just gets killed. This doesn't. So you flash in, bounce your Siren, hit them, and then stun. The stun is worse than the Emperor's Exile. Like, it doesn't protect you forever, but in a deck that's hitting you with cards, like if you have a Gix in play and you stun their guy, that's incredible. Yeah, like you just get through and start drawing cards. In that tempo deck, it does look very good. 4 loyalty could go up to 5 on turn 3. That's very large. That means it's not going to die on the backswing on turn 3. It doesn't. And again, if you're pressuring them with a 1 and 2 drop, they're probably not able to attack and handle your then counter attack anyway. So yeah, I think it could definitely see play in tempo, but it is 4 mana. If you can ninjutsu it consistently, then maybe it goes in there alongside Gix and some other good 3 drops.
Yeah. I'm here for this. This is what it's funny. The first time I saw it, or at first glance, 4 mana Kaito, I know where this is going. And then the more we talk about it, the more I realize, oh, wait a minute, no, like this is actually a really good 3 mana planeswalker that also is an additional creature, and those aggressive Dimir decks, the tempo decks, like you're saying, Damien, 100%.
It's a shell that exists.
It fits.
Yeah,
it is. And this could boost it notably. So the more we talk about it, the more I like it. Yeah.
Another card in the Dimir tempo list that's starting to see play that works really well with Kaito is from Bloomburrow. It's an uncommon. It's called Plume Creed Escort. It's 1 in a blue for a 2/1 flash flyer. When it enters, target creature you control gains hexproof to end of turn. So that works pretty well hand in hand with this Kaito. So you can keep giving them creatures hexproof and avoid all the removal that your opponent's playing. And the card has flash.
That's interesting.
So something that definitely fits in sort of this shell.
Cool.
That is currently seen play in standard.
I dig it.
Yeah, I expect to see this guy. We'll see if it makes a big splash, but I think the big splash will be this new mechanic. Can we talk about this there's a new mechanic that they just unveiled. I don't know what they're calling it. The room is just the room mechanic. So
Rooms.
there's this
Yes.
card doll maker shop. Do you want to? You're the card
Yeah,
guy,
I'm happy.
man. Do you wanna,
So
you guys do it?
they did reveal the artwork for some of the rooms during the first look, but we didn't see what it did. They just said this is a new enchantment type. More to come. It's exciting. So we've now seen it, and yeah, they've spoiled one of them. This is Dollmaker's Shop, which is it's kind of a split card, and the way that it works is there are two different sides, and you can cast either side, and then later in the game, as a sorcery, you can pay the cost of the other side and get it too. So it's almost like an adventure in that regard, except that instead of an instant or sorcery and then a permanent later, you're getting a permanent now and you get another permanent later, and you can do it in whatever sequence you want. So it's kind of interesting.
Like
so one side, when you first play it, you're playing whichever side, often the cheaper one, and the other side will be locked, I believe is the way they're referring to it. So it'll be, it almost sounds like it's going to behave as though it's kind of phased out, like it's just not there. You just don't take it into account.
Right.
Which is going to be interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a neat idea. I'm actually curious what the... There's some rules questions about like what is the mana value of the permanent while it's on the battlefield. I'm curious about that. I don't know if they touched on that during the previous stream or not. But anyway, that's a very minute thing, and probably won't affect standard in any way. I'm just curious about what that'll.
I'm curious too, though.
It should be the combined total, like it is with the split cards.
Split cards. That makes sense.
But we'll have to wait for clarification.
Yeah. So Dollmaker Shop is an enchantment room for 1 and a white. And so kind of my question is, could it be seen as a non-land permanent with mana value 3 or less, basically? It's kind of my question, because the other side is not. So anyway, Dollmaker Shop, 1 and a white. Whenever one or more non-toy creatures you control attack a player, create a 1/1 white toy artifact creature token. And so this kind of reminds me of like Anim Pakal, almost, just a powered down version, but kind of that idea.
But an enchantment, nice, harder to deal with, and only 2 mana. Yeah, like that's powerful actually.
Yeah, every time you attack with a non-toy, which most of our creatures are non-toys, you're just making 1/1s. Nice. And then the other room is a 6-drop Porcelain Gallery. So for 4 white, creatures you control have base power and toughness, each equal to the number of creatures you control.
Right. Yeah, it's giving me like Virtue of Loyalty vibes, where you've got a cheap token maker and then a way to pump all your tokens later. But yeah, it's almost got this adventure kind of value to it, where it's a 2-for-1. All of these are built in 2-for-1s that you don't have to like worry about flashing back out of your graveyard or other stuff. Like you can just do the thing. It's already on the battlefield. You just open the door by paying the other cost. That does leave it open to getting hit by obviously removal, and then you kind of lose both. But I think it's pretty powerful. And then of course, like you said initially, you don't have to play the first half. You draw this in the late game. You've already got a big board. You slam Porcelain Gallery, pump the team. Or I want to see how crazy this can get. Like, so creatures you control. So with 5 creatures, they're all 5/5s. With 6 creatures, they're all 6/6s. So I mean, yeah, you're already having to go pretty wide to really get that back half to be really powerful. And there are decks that are like, I mean, Caretaker's Talent's insane. You go this into Caretaker's Talent, like, can you imagine that card's already very busted? So I don't know. I like this a lot. I like value cards like this built into
Go white tokens. Yeah.
Caretaker's Talent. Caretaker's Talent is the best card in Standard. Y'all can at me in the comments.
I agree with that.
I'm gonna go ahead and add you and say, yep, you're right.
I think this is definitely agree with Damien. This card is a very good card to be played alongside of that one. It's interesting too, because during the preview stream when they were talking about this card, they were saying how this is going to be an enchantment heavy set. They're also reintroducing the border to be the Nyx border that we saw in Theros on all enchantment cards. So all enchantment cards going forward will have that border. The rooms don't, though, because they can't simply fit it on the card. They are on the other ones, though, because they showed some commons and uncommons.
Like the enchantment creatures have the border. Like there's a bunch of enchantment permanents, right? Yeah.
So the reason I mention this is because we have a lot of like destroy target enchantment cards in Standard now that are just going to get better because they're printing cards like this. You know, whether that's Get Lost or Pick Your Poison or Paw Patch Formation. All of these cards are very good in Standard right now. And I think it's going, you know, Tranquil Throwback and Aftermath, a lot of these cards to answer these newer threats. So if you don't have enchantment cards in your deck or your sideboard now, or like destroy target enchantment cards, get them in there because there's going to be lots of these threats. Yeah,
and it's a weird variety you have to play. Like, you know, we were talking to go back to Standard. You know, the Jeskai control deck you mentioned playing earlier, and I was playing a bunch of it. It's got a really weird removal suite. You've got Get Lost, you've got a Braid, and you've got Destroy Evil. Like, you can't just only play one of these, like, Destroy Enchantment or Artifact spells, because you have to cover, like, there's Urabrask's Forge you have to deal with, which Get Lost doesn't hit, and it's like, oh. So you have to play this weird smattering of, like, non-creature permanent removal, and which is good, because Standard's got, like, a Braid's great, Get Lost is great. We have a good mix of that, which is nice, but what I'm really wondering is the stock of big sweepers like Cease Desist going to go up? Like something that blows away all the enchantments. You know what I mean? Maybe that's the best way to handle it, and just go,
fade into
you know what?
history.
Yeah. That's the other one with the bear, right? Gives you a bear or whatever. Yeah, that's right. We mentioned it.
Is one that I've loved since it came out in Brothers War, and it has never popped off. And
that might be a sideboard card for green decks now. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, but a lot of great enchantments. I didn't know that though. Yeah, the Theros kind of like creature enchantments, and I assume other permanents. What I want to say one more time, or before we move off of room, are rooms only enchantments, or did they say are there going to be like artifact rooms or any other kind of rooms?
Rooms just enchantments.
Okay, interesting. Okay. Interesting. Cool. I like the mechanic. I think 2-for-1s built into one card are great. You know, they've always been great. Adventures and Aftermath
they've always been great. The thing is, it's funny because I feel like Dollmaker's Shop by itself probably wouldn't be worth running in any scenario. You know, it kind of reminds me of there's the Merfolk one, the Deep Root Pilgrimage, I think it is.
Yes.
Where if a Merfolk taps, you get one Merfolk, but that Merfolk has hexproof, so like. Okay, that's pretty decent, and it's a creature type that is meaningful. This one, like, you do get the one toy each turn, but it's only one, no matter how many things you're attacking with, and the toy attacking doesn't trigger it, so it's kind of, it's kind of lackluster by itself. But the moment you add the threat of the Porcelain Gallery later, then it becomes pretty significant, or it becomes a threat that your opponent really needs to respect. And in that case, the toys are just powering up how much Porcelain Gallery is going to be worth later. So I think these cards, this design space, I think this card is going to be fine. I think it's going to play well. I'm nervous to see what other ones we're going to see, because this idea of a built-in 2-for-1. If they push one of these just a little too far, it could be problematic very easily. Like we saw that with Adventures, you know, where a couple of really good competitively costed Adventures really just defined the entire format for a really long time. And so that's something we're going to keep an eye out. I'm going to keep an eye out on these with great interest.
Or if something says, like, you know, like one of the most busted cards, like talking about Adventures, was like Innkeeper. And drawing a card. If they print just a cheap 1 or 2 mana creature that says every time you open a room you draw a card, or every time you like open a door or whatever it's called you draw something like that might be too slow. But if they have a bunch of these that are cheap, then like all these suddenly enabler pieces get really good, and then that might be scary. But let's pray that they learn their lesson.
Here's hoping.
We're fine.
I think they've had enough opportunities to understand how good two spells on one card is. So I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. I think we're gonna be okay, but I'm very curious what we're gonna see.
Yeah.
All right. So we do have a couple others. I think there were 2 other cards that I wanted to touch on, and they're 2 legends from the set. We have Winter, Misanthropic Guide, and then Zimone. I wanted to touch on those 2 because I think they're interesting.
Okay. Tell us about Winter.
Winter, Misanthropic Guide. If you were really into the Crow in the 90s, this guy is right there with you. So Winter, Misanthropic Guide is a 3/4 human warlock for 1 black, red, green with Ward 2, because he's a creature in 2024. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws 2 cards. And then each player, you and your opponent, which is everybody gets cards. I'm in already, but I'm weird like that. Delirium. As long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, each opponent's maximum hand size is equal to 7 minus the number of those card types.
Not convoluted at all.
Not at all. So
Delirium.
Delirium's a weird mechanic. It's kind of a threshold style mechanic, but it forces you to have a lot of different creature or a lot of different card types. But with enchantments being creatures and artifacts and whatever, it's
back. Delirium's back now, which is a big deal. Like
yeah.
it was powerful. There's a lot of powerful Delirium cards.
Yeah.
But obviously this is a graveyard-based type thing, so a lot of stuff in this set probably is going to be doing graveyard stuff, whether it's dumping stuff in the graveyard or bringing stuff back from the graveyard. Ham's already grinning from ear to ear over there.
I love this. the group hug graveyard guy. This is probably going to be my command.
I don't know if Ham actually likes graveyard-based cards.
I mean, it's okay.
Are we sure?
It's okay. I'm cool with it.
Rumors.
I enjoy
it. But this is interesting. So this thing says, ideally here you're making them draw cards, but then you're reducing their hand size to nothing, right? If you can get Delirium up to 4 or 5, they can only have a max hand size of 2. Then the extra 2 cards are not doing anything. It's almost like you're milling, but that's still bad because you're filtering their draws. Like even if their max hand size is lower, they're still churning through their deck because of you. Eventually, they're going to find an answer to this or something, right?
Well, and the weird part is they draw the cards on your upkeep. So they're drawing cards on your turn, they're passing back to their turn, drawing their card for turn, and now they have all the cards in their hand. They're not going to have to discard any of those till their end step. If their deck is built correctly and they're able to play a decent chunk of their cards, the lower maximum hand size isn't really affecting anything outside of Commander, you know? Like,
yeah, that's true.
So
do you think that Winter is friends with Shieldred the Apocalypse?
Yeah, that's a good way to use it.
They absolutely will.
Now,
they'll be best buds.
It's tough to cast. I mean, it's a 3-colored card. Like, John, sure, and you can make it work, and it's a 4-drop, which also, Shieldred is. But yeah, those two go together. Like, wow, gain 4 on my turn, you lose 4 on my turn. Like, that's huge every turn.
Now, notably, what obviously we didn't get to see today, because they're probably going to save it for next week when preview season officially starts, I guess. Or Monday, whenever that is. Is that Monday? No, Monday's Labor Day. We can't do that. Maybe Tuesday.
I don't know.
Who knows anymore? Honestly, they're previewing cards every day.
Right.
But, maybe we'll get to see a land cycle since we didn't have one in Bloomburrow that may make 3 color decks kind of playable again.
Oh, I thought 3 colors of mana. I was like, what? You want I think Tri-Lands are
No Tri-Lands. That can stay away. We don't need those.
That make 3 color decks viable. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see at least one cycle. I think we need another one. Right now, like, it's okay playing a 3-color deck, but it's a little rough. Like, you got to play quite a few tap lands.
I agree.
And it's not the sweetest.
I mean, the surveillance kind of are on the table at that point without
great,
being fetchable.
But
they're good lands. If you're doing the domain thing and you're able to ramp a little bit in conjunction with hitting your land drops, they're fine. But if you're trying to play on curve, and like your turn 4 drop is a surveil land and you're sitting with Winter and Shieldred in your hand, that's gonna feel awful. So yeah.
Winter and Children in my hand.
Right.
So I don't know. Winter, I think, is going to see play in something either really, really gross, like some kind of disgusting combo deck, or it's not going to see play at all. Like there's no, I don't know.
I think you're
one of those 2 things.
Yeah, and that's
100%.
We'll see. Now, I do see the inklings of a cycle here. I before we jump on maybe to your last card, I'm sorry, but we have Fear of Immobility and Fear of Lost Teeth. Is this a cycle? There's going to be a fear in every color, I presume.
That's right.
But we haven't seen them all. Okay, that's our first cycle that I can see here.
Yeah, and I think that's an uncommon cycle or a common cycle or a mixture of the 2. Yeah.
I think it's common. Yeah, it's common.
Folks were asking on the Magic stream when they were previewing those cards, why didn't you just make them curses? Like, because curses have a cycle, and curses would have worked well with the cards that were in Eldraine. Obviously, they weren't taking questions because it was just them live streaming the panel that they did at PAX West. But there was this question in the chat quite frequently saying, I think this is a missed opportunity to just make a new cycle of curses in the horror sphere.
I mean, they're nightmares. It looks like they're all nightmares. They're enchantment creatures. We don't have to go over the specifics. I was just mentioning that it's kind of an interesting cycle at common. So this is one of those enchantment creatures that I guess.
So I pulled up Fear of Immobility as one of them. Yeah,
there you go. Fear of Immobility, sure.
So 4/4 for 5 when it enters, tap up to 1 target creature. If an opponent controls that creature, you put a stun counter on it. So
So not that great, but
not amazing.
They're common.
Yeah, it's a limited playable, 5-drop. But yeah.
So some cycles coming up. Yeah, hopefully go to land cycle. What was the last one you wanted to mention, Ham?
But so the last one that I wanted to talk about is a character that is coming back as well, Zimone, all questioning. So who doesn't love Zimone, right? So she's a 1/1 human wizard for 1 green blue. And I don't know about you guys, but creatures with 1 green blue, I know these are always safe. We're going to be fine.
Yeah.
All right. At the beginning of your end step, if a land entered the battlefield under your control this turn, and you control a prime number of lands, create Primo the Indivisible, a legendary 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token, then put that many +1/+1 counters on it.
And then it has to tell you.
It has a reminder text on what the prime numbers are.
I hate math. Yeah, I don't want to figure out a prime number. What's next?
No.
To activate this planeswalker, solve this equation, and it's some algebra, and like, get out of here. No,
but you know what I really appreciate? The reminder text is on the very bottom of the card, and it says, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, and 29 and 31 are prime numbers.
Yeah.
The reason that I really appreciate that being on the bottom of the card is, if you're in high school and you have a math class where you care about prime numbers, you can slide that into your textbook, like in the little crate right under it, so you can right there, so you can see, like, wait, what is that prime? Yeah. Anyway,
I love it.
You can just show your teacher and say, "This is like my good luck card when I'm taking tests."
Yeah.
It has nothing that affects the way I can.
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
How many Magic games are you think gonna play out? Like the only numbers that matter here are 2, 3, 5, and maybe 7.
If you hit 7, you're having a great day. Yeah,
it's okay, kids. You don't have to memorize them all. I hate math. I when I see this, I get very uncomfortable. My stomach, there's a cold feeling and icicles. Go on.
The flavor of this card is hilarious because Zimone was from Quandrix, and in Strixhaven, Quandrix made all these weird fractals and did all kinds of stuff in that regard, but they also had this theme in the draft environment of having a lot of lands on the battlefield. Like if lands were on the battlefield or if lands entered the battlefield and you had a certain amount, crazy things happen. So this is kind of a callback to that. What I don't understand about this is why does it trigger at the end step? And how come of all the creatures that are printed in 2024, a 1/1 for 3 with an end step trigger doesn't have ward? I don't get it.
So
3/4 for 4 mana does though. Winter has ward.
I don't get it. I don't understand, because this is, I think like it's rarely going to trigger. And it's when it does trigger, it's rarely going to be impactful because at most you're creating a token creature that is on rate for where you are.
Yeah.
So like let's play this out. So turn 3, you play your land, you cast Zimone. End step, have you played a land this turn? Yes. Is it a prime number? Yes. You get a 3/3. Right?
Cool.
If you have 3 lands,
Yeah, like on turn 3, you rock out a 3/3.
And then next turn you untap. Let's say Zimone doesn't die. You attack with your 3/3 because it's legendary as well. You've got to because again you play 4th land. This triggers. It says you don't have prime. You don't get anything. Then you play. So you have to wait 2 turns. So then on your 5th turn you get your Primo back. Like you have to even skip so you have a 3/3 for a couple turns and then you can throw it away or whatever because then on turn 5 you get a 5/5. But again, that requires her surviving. That requires you being able to get rid of Primo.
But the token is legendary.
Right.
You can't even have your 3/3 and the 5/5 on the battlefield at the same time.
It's so silly. Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing that's weird about this is like, okay, you have her out on turn, you drop a land, hit her on turn 3, you get a 3/3 at the end of the turn. You just put 4/4 worth of stats online for 3 mana. Theoretically, that's decent, right? But then if it's, when you're on turn 5, if you like play your 5th land, but then ramp in some way, and so that you end the turn with 6 lands down, all of a sudden, well, now you're not getting Primo back. And it's like, you have to almost, like, if in any situation I'm playing Simic, and I'm having to, like, intentionally choose not to ramp, I'm having a bad day. So
this card is a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and I don't feel like the juice is worth the squeeze. I mean, I feel like Primo needed to have, Death Touch, Trample, First Strike, or so. I don't know. Like they needed to juice it somehow.
Death Touch first, just Glissa.
Just make it super Glissa. Exactly.
Okay. Or just say like Primo doesn't suffer from like Primo's a legend, but isn't affected by the legend rule or something like that. To have him be, I don't know.
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
Okay, but actually, they could have given Primo Vigilance and Trample very easily. Now that you're in blue and green, that would have been completely justifiable and
that's more threatening.
There wouldn't have been any issue with that. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be worth it.
No,
it's a fun design. It's a funny idea. It's an interesting low power commander build around that you could have some goofy fun with. Cool. I'm glad the card exists, but she's not going to see Santa play.
I have, well, I don't know if Carlo, you have any saved up, but I want to go next. I want to do one.
Yeah.
I haven't read any of these, so I'm starting to look. I'm like, is there anything here that I actually think is good enough? And then I see Peer Past the Veil. This is an interesting card. So this is a red-green, well, I don't know if, you're looking it up, or I'll read it. So it's a, okay, go ahead. Tell us what it does.
Okay, so it's an instant for 2 red-green. Discard your hand, then draw X cards where X is the number of card types among cards in your graveyard.
Yeah, so there's a lot of decks that dump their hands very quickly, especially red decks, like green-red Gruul dumps its hand very quickly, for example. In a long, drawn-out match, this is 4 mana, which is way too much for an aggro deck, but this is very powerful. Like, when you're empty-handed, or even just 1 or 2 cards in your hand, if you can pay 4 mana at instant speed and draw 4 or 5 cards, that is not out of the question here. That is very powerful. I don't know what kind of a deck, again, a Jund deck. We've seen Pillage the Bog?
Pillage the Bog, yeah.
Or not Pillage. Pitiless Carnage. Pitiless Carnage is the one I'm thinking of.
Yes.
Sack all your lands, draw all your cards, and then replay with the Analyst, Aftermath Analyst, and those decks never really came together in Standard. They're not very good. But before rotation, I was hypothesizing on this very podcast about that kind of thing with the Iridescent Vine last year. It ended up just being so inconsistent. It's just not there. There's some people I still run into on the ladder playing that kind of combo deck, but this goes right into this kind of Jund, sack my stuff, dump my hand really quickly, and then put all these things into graveyard and draw a bunch of cards. I don't know. I see something like this, I think, man, drawing cards equal to the different types in your graveyard in a few different decks in Standard right now could be very powerful. I'm playing the Sultai Squirming Emergence deck. This thing would draw 5 or 6 cards every single time. But again, that deck, you're putting a track, so that's how you're drawing cards. So I wonder if for a Jund deck or something, this could be really powerful. I don't know. Again, instant speed, 4 mana, draw 5. That's very, very.
As a Reanimator player, I can tell you the number of times that I've been sitting with 2 or even 3, 7 or 8 drop demons in my hand and nothing else.
Yeah, dude.
The idea of being able to dump those and refill my hand in one go, that sounds incredible. So and then on top of that, when you have Cruelty of Gix as the reanimation target, you can even throw that down at some of the earlier modes, so you don't even you're discarding the reanimation spell isn't even a concern because it's sitting on the battlefield waiting for the graveyard to be loaded for your next turn. I like this a lot, actually.
You have a bunch of different types. Again, in Squirming, I'm playing Portal to Phyrexia, one with the multiverse, attracts you've got creatures, artifacts, enchantments, lands, of course. I think you could draw 4 or 5 cards with this relatively easily. But I don't know. Cool. I would love to see a deck that does that. That's going to be a very good card, or again, unplayable. It just depends if that kind of combo style deck.
Exactly. It's going to be a complete nothing burger or an absolute bomb. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see where it lines up. But yes, that effect is very powerful. Yeah.
Carlo, do you want to pick one?
The one card I want to talk about is the board wipe. It's called Split Up, and it's wait for
Okay, what color is it?
It's called Split Up. It's white. It's 1 and double white.
Okay.
Yeah. 3 mana board wipe. In fact, it is a 1 double white. It is a sorcery. It says choose 1, destroy all tapped creatures, or destroy all untapped creatures.
Oh, for 3
mana, and it is a rare.
Oh, that's incredible. Holy crap, that's awesome.
It's definitely got to be ridiculously powerful.
I just read the flavor text. That has to be some of my favorite flavor text ever on a Magic card. Whatever happens, we need to stick together. That's the flavor text. That's great.
Heck yeah.
The Haunted House
will consume you. Yeah.
Okay, so wow, what is there to say about this? I mean, Temporary Lockdown's already a 3 mana Wrath in Standard that's so powerful it's seeing play in Pioneer, or it was when Blue-White Control was viable. That 3 mana Wraths are very, very strong, and this has no restriction. It's not just killing little stuff. This will kill 7/7s and giant creatures in the late game. So temporary lockdown has that drawback of being dead in the late game a lot of times. Like it's, depending on the deck. I mean, there is no late game when you're playing against Boros and stuff. You either draw temp lockdown or they kill you. But if you get to the late game against other decks, this card is relevant still, and that is very powerful. Even just being able to double spell, like again, when you have to tap out for a sweeper and then they just resolve another wave of stuff as the control player, that sucks. Now you're like, all right, back to the drawing board. But if you get to go 3-mana Wrath, leave up 3 steps ahead on turn 6 or whatever, or leave up a 2-mana counter or whatever, like No More Lies on turn 5, that is very powerful.
Very good.
Instead of Sunfall on turn 5, I can actually counter your next thing after post Wrath, right?
Yeah.
However, the tapped on tap thing is also very interesting here. Like there are going to be spots where that is going to kill you. Like they have a vigilance creature, or they have it's going to be interesting. I like it. I know a lot of people are going to complain about this. I when I was
because we need more board wipes.
More board wipes
every set. Just give us more.
I said last week on the podcast, I said we need planar cleansing and foundations. They gave us Day of Judgment, and people are like, why? Why do we need?
Well,
and I'm like, they're pressure valves. We need stuff like that.
Right.
Watch them print like Farewell and Foundations now, and give us that for 5 years. Make me very sad.
No, that card's too good.
Enchantments that are out here.
Yeah. No, that's too good. But something like planar cleansing, I was saying we should. Maybe that's too far. But this is I wouldn't have suggested a 3-mana Wrath. I think that's almost better than a planar cleansing or whatever. Like that is.
Yeah.
That's good. That is going to be sweet. I wanna play with that one. I like killing stuff. I'm a sick.
More options. Let's go.
Awesome.
That's bonkers. All right.
And, one more weird that we're talking about Wraths. They did announce a special guest card, a big reprint. A lot of people really, really wanted them to reprint. Damnation. Speaking of Wraths, now this card will not be standard legal. This is in the special guest slot, I guess, for this set. But it's an iconic Wrath. It's the best Wrath Black's ever had, probably. Maybe Meathook surpassed it. I'm not sure, but Damnation is so good, and it's expensive too. I think, right? Still, I know it was super expensive.
Was quite expensive.
Yeah, so this needed a reprint, and the art's cool and full art bordered.
I mean, if you're in Commander and you have a black deck of some kind, unless you have white in it, and you can run, Wrath of God, Day of Judgment, all that jazz. Like, if you're in any kind of color combination that has access to black but not white, you probably want this card. Like,
Damnation is a sweet reprint.
Yeah, it's really good.
And now that it's on the special guest sheet, that means it's coming to Arena for all of you historic and timeless enjoyers out there.
There you go.
You will have access to this card.
Yeah.
So 2 Wraths, one of them legal and standard, one not. But that 3-mana Wrath spicy. I'm gonna give the most disturbing art award to Disturbing Mirth. This card is an uncommon. I didn't read it, but I'm just looking at this art, and God, that is bizarre. The guy's exposed brain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The art in this set is, if you are a horror fan, it's gotta be appealing to you, because this is really good.
I heard a great phrase. This is borrowed from video games, but they were talking about a game that's coming out that's kind of like Warhammer 40K, universe, and they were referring to those kind of games as grimdark games, like Souls and all this stuff. I love that phrase, and I think it fits perfectly for Duskmourn. This is a grimdark set. It's all just like horror,
it's pretty brutal,
it's gothic, it's dark, it's like graphic almost. That's a pretty graphic Magic card there.
Yeah, I wonder if the art direction on this one. I wonder if the art direction on this one was legally distinct Hellraiser Demon Go.
Right.
Or the Hellraiser. That's the one. The Pinhead. That's
pins. Yeah.
That's very much what I'm seeing.
It certainly reminds me of something that could be included, obviously, in the Rakdos ring from Ravnica. That's what the first look at this art got me. I'm like, oh, yes, is Duskmourn actually on Ravnica?
Yeah, that's what. I see that too, but the thing is with the Cult of Rakdos, the spikes are on the outer edge, and the smile, and kind of that twisted, horrible but happy kind of vibe that absolutely fits with Rakdos. But the one thing about the Cult of Rakdos is the idea of an exposed brain, the idea that the skull would be removed and the creature is still perfectly happy and safe and healthy. That, I don't think Rakdos has the precision to do something like that. So that makes that adds to the creepiness factor on a whole other level.
Talk about it just for a minute. I mean, this is a really good card. I know we didn't discuss what it does yet, but
right.
Do you want to go over it? Let's go over it.
Yeah, it's an enchantment for black-red, so that just 2. When Disturbing Mirth enters, you may sacrifice another enchantment or creature if you do draw 2 cards. And when you sacrifice Disturbing Mirth, Manifest Dread, which, reminder text, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature, and the other into your graveyard. Turn it face up anytime for its mana cost, if it's a creature card. Manifest. It's Manifest Dread is like a Manifest plus Surveil.
That's cool.
That's right. That's a new mechanic in this set. And you could just play another Disturbing Mirth and sacrifice the one that you played first and draw 2. Like, it's very good. And it helps you enable Delirium by putting an enchantment in your yard early.
So
interesting.
Oh yeah, okay, right. So you draw the 2, you sack something else. So then the second one comes in. You sack the first one. You draw 2. Oh no, you Manifest Dread first, then draw the 2, right?
Well, you control them both, so I think you'd get to pick. Yeah.
Oh yeah, right.
The first is
2 triggers that happen simultaneously. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Good. Wow, that's pretty good. Yeah.
This is interesting. On Manifest Dread, I gotta be honest. I hate the fact that a manifest mechanic is showing up at the same time as disguise. So you're gonna have face down creatures, some of which have Ward 2 and some of which don't, in the same standard environment.
That's how I feel in standard right now. How you have the Eldraine rats that are 1/1s that can't block, and the rats from Bloomburrow that are 1/1s that can block.
Absolutely can. It's just the record keeping on the board is gonna get awkward.
You know, one way that you could help record keep, and they aren't a sponsor of the stream, but if you've ever gotten yourself some Infinitokens, if you don't have them, you should get them, because then you could just dry erase and write tokens as you need.
Not sponsored,
and you
but
will
they're
get
great. Love them.
You'll get better as an artist. Also, we're always looking for sponsors. Some other anyway. But Demonic Council is another cool card I wanted to mention. We straight up have Demonic Tutor. This is Demonic Tutor, a 1 black 1 colorless, Demonic Tutor, same cost. You can only get a demon, but if you have Delirium, like again in a self-mill deck, this is DT. This is Demonic Tutor. Demonic Council is the name of the card. There it is. Ham got it.
Yeah, so your library for a demon, reveal it, put it into your hand, or if you're a former, if you have Delirium, just go grab a card.
That could be very good too. Strong. Again, in self-mill, we've got Insidious Roots decks that might be able to use this. Pick up a Tivar or something. We've got Squirming Emergence. Again, I don't know. You have to rebuild those decks because Squirming doesn't want to play any non-permanent cards, and the Insidious Roots, I don't know if they want to play a card like this. But
very interesting stuff.
DT is powerful. You gotta take note of cards like this. That might be something that
could be very strong.
Self-mill Golgari deck or some, with the turtle or something could just easily turn on. Okay, go get my Vraska combo. Boom, I win. I have the Innkeeper's Talent. Now I have a DT to fetch it. I don't have to play 3 crappy Vraskas in my deck. I can just play 1 and play 3 of these. And then these can either get Vraska or get some other utility card. That one of Frillback in my deck. That one of whatever. That's very powerful. And then if a deck can self-mill and enable it reliably, this is a card I can definitely see being played.
So demon cards in standard that are actually worth tutoring for 2 mana. You have Archfiend of the Dross from Phyrexian will be one. You have Bloodletter of Aklazat. Is a vampire
combo card
from Ixalan.
Combo card.
You've got Dreadfast Demon for those of. Oh, I'm sorry. No, that just rotated out.
No, that is rotated.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
You have what is it? Hijitsu and Carry.
Hidetsugu
and Carry. Yeah.
Yep.
It's another combo card. They're all combo cards.
Yep.
You've got Rakdos. Rakdos the Muscle is a demon.
And so
Tito is a demon.
Yeah, the fact that so many of these are in fact combo cards and or combo combo pieces.
Enablers.
Hidetsugu Kairi is a great example of a card that is really fun but not exactly good. And part of the reason that deck struggled, Hidetsugu Kairi alongside Breach the Multiverse, Push Pull, those kind of cards could be really fun to pull off. And I know I had a blast with it, and I'm sure we'll continue with it. This kind of a card all of a sudden creates consistency in that deck that it otherwise lacks.
Right.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
And that definitely
Demonic Tutor.
Yeah.
Anytime a card has those 4 words.
It's Demonic Tutor that can help you go grab a push pull or a Brutes of Multiverse if it's late in the game and you've already filled your graveyard a little bit. But if you haven't, it can still find you your Hidetsugu Kairi and get the party started. So that kind of a thing is great. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, I like combos and I love tutoring up stuff. I like decks that play toolboxes. So yeah, playing a Demonic Tutor. I mean, we saw what was it? The green sorcery that had Delirium the first time around. That was Demonic Tutor. If you had Delirium, traverse the Uvenwald. Is that what it was called?
Something like that.
It was like 1 green mana, go get a land, and then if you have Delirium, you can get like any card, right? It was something like that. Traverse the Uvenwald. It was in one of the top decks at the time, in like a Pro Tour winning deck or whatever. Like everybody was playing the. It was like I don't know. You played a bunch of little creatures, then they all tapped for mana with some other card and whatever. It was playing that kind of tutor. Even I think it was like Abzan Greasefang was also playing it and stuff like that. Any self-milled reanimator deck can play a Demonic Tutor like this to really good effect. So. Be interesting to see. But any other cards you guys want to call out here, or
I'm noticing that we have been getting awfully long. We meant for this to be a relatively quick one, but of course, spoilers. We have thoughts, so here we are.
And the ban
there will
announcement,
be and ban announcement. These are the 2 of the most thought-provoking types of events, and they happen to line up this week. But we are going to be deep into the heart of preview season by the time we're recording again next week. So. Just strap in, y'all. That's what we're going to be talking about. So next week might be a long one, and we might be talking about just previews from top to bottom. So definitely looking forward to that. But I think the time has come for us to take this in for a landing. So, we generally do a question of the week. This has already gone pretty darn long. Do either of you guys have one that you want to throw out, or do we just want to?
Maybe we could save it for next week. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah. We'll
come up with a good one.
Yeah, sounds good. And was there anything you guys have coming up that you want to let people know about before we
Ferretto always has something coming up.
We always have something, right?
I mean, there's early access is the big one, right? We all got into early access. Yay! So we're going to be playing Duskmourn from dusk till dawn. I'm going to be playing or dawn till dusk, I guess.
Dawn till dusk.
I'm going to be playing there you go.
It's 24 hours back again, just FYI.
Hey!
Yeah.
Great.
So, yes.
I'm going to...
So Damien, 24-hour stream incoming.
So
and Ham, he's been doing it too every time.
I will be doing a long one. It's no doubt.
Ferretto, you got to join us, all of us, 24 hours.
It's gonna be crazy, and that is the 18th, if I'm not mistaken. So
the 18th.
Yep, the 18th. So that is a Wednesday going into a Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. Which I'm terrible with dates, so that's a thing. But so. Hop over to twitch.tv, look in the Magic the Gathering category that day. It is going to be in Fuego. We'll be there along with probably your favorite streamer. Well, if it's not one, your second favorite streamers will also be there. So pop around and go see. Anyway, it's a load of fun. It's always a blast. And one of the things that I love about the early access events specifically is that you get paired up with other streamers while they are streaming. And I've noticed that when I get paired up against like Ashlizzle or Crokies, like all of a sudden, like people will pop into the chat and just start talking about seeing the battle from both sides. Like they don't give hand information or anything like that. It's in good fun.
All good fun,
And people like want to see both sides of the battle, which is something you normally don't get to see on Twitch. It's a blast. If one person
I gotta play more. Go ahead, sorry.
So if you see me just like salting out, losing my cool, and and Ashlizzle just being super chill, and she's just beating the crap out of me, that's the thing that you get to watch, or you get to watch Carlo be all like, "Can you believe I'm gonna board wipe this fool again?" Like it's great. It's a blast. So,
I like playing limited a lot, but I gotta play constructed more this time. I didn't play enough constructed last time, and I felt because I just love like the new set playing limited. That way I get to play all the new cards instead of just like let's take the most powerful one and build a deck around it. But I've lost to Ashlizzle the vast majority of time. I think I've only beat her once, and I think I've fought her like 4 or 5 times. But
she's one of the top streamers for a reason. She's great. Anyway. I didn't bring that up. I just mentioned that because she every single time I get paired up against her during early access, like, well, we're gonna lose this one. Let's just see how fast. And it's always interesting. It's a blast.
2 other things coming up on Saturday the 7th, which will be Saturday after you hear this podcast come out. There is a creator showdown on Magic the Gathering Online. That is just the creators who are in the program, but it's a 5K, so there's actually like money on the line.
Wow, nice.
So, and it is standard. So I know I'll be streaming early in the morning that day. what time it starts at like 12, so I like start at like 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. So who knows? I'll probably still be playing the Just Guy deck. Depends how long it takes to play on Magic Online. I've played some leagues, and it is time consuming to play out the deck. So that is consideration when choosing a deck to play. But it's been doing well. And then also there should be early access for Duskmourn on Magic Online. It's either going to be that Thursday the 19th or the Friday the 20th. So if you want to check that out, I'll probably be streaming those. Though the week of the 20th, 21st is pre-release weekend, and I always do that from my LGS. So you can catch me playing some Sealed there.
I want to play paper Magic again. It's been so long. The last time I played was with you guys in Vegas. That was the last time I got to play paper Magic.
Yeah.
Sad.
And speaking of, Vegas is coming up.
Oh, and right. Never mind. You guys will be there.
October 26th through the 27th.
Nice.
And Ham Hawks and I are going to be sharing a meet and greet.
Heck yeah.
Nice.
So that's Sunday. We'll be there, shaking hands and
I'm jealous.
Get some babies.
Take lots of pictures.
Shaking babies, kissing hands. Yeah. It's gonna be great.
In the post-COVID world, we don't do that anymore.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Take lots of pictures.
Amazing.
I want to see.
But, absolutely.
That's
great.
Don't
worry. Nothing will stay in Vegas. It is all getting recorded, and we're gonna let everybody know about it. Yep. Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. Appreciate it. And thank you, dear listener. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, all that happy jazz. And also thank you for making it to the end. It means a lot. We appreciate you. So we'll see you next week, everyone.
Later.